If you're like me and you're more than a beginner, but you don't want to spend $1,500 for a flagship bow, this might be the perfect bow for you. So I would consider myself an average bow hunter. I'm pretty good, but I like to shoot top pin, 20 yards. That's why 3 years ago I bought this, the Sanlida Dragon X8. It was the cheapest bow on Amazon. I paid $200 and it's been great. It's a great entry-level bow. It's fully adjustable. It was great for me. I made a review video about it. Sanlida sent me their new Dragon 10 flagship bow. $450. You can buy it right now on Amazon. I'll put a link down in the description. So first things first, you can buy this flagship bow on Amazon for $450. And that's probably going to be one of the main reasons you might be considering this bow, considering most flagship bows are $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. So this is less than half. If you want to buy the kit with all these add-ons, it's $730. And in this video, I'll be comparing it a lot to my X8 because this is something I'm familiar with, and this is the beginner bow that kind of really got me back into archery, and this would be your next step up. So if you're someone like me that is more than a beginner, maybe you've been shooting this for 3, 4, 5 years, and now you're ready to upgrade, this might be the option you're considering. So let's first go over the specs, and you can see right away, there is a size difference. Axle to axle, this bow is 33.5 inches, so it's a lot taller than the X8. This has a brace height of 6.4 inches, and the draw weight is variable. So in this bow, this was fully adjustable. You could adjust the draw weight, the draw length. It fit everybody. When you're ready to upgrade to this, you have to know more about yourself as a shooter, which you probably will. So you'll probably know what poundage you're going to be drawing back at, and you're probably going to know your draw length already. So when you buy this, you have to buy the specific bow and cams that fit that draw weight and draw length. So the draw weight ranges from 50 to 60 pounds or 60 to 70 pounds. The draw length will range with the large cams from 30 to 32 inches and from the medium cams to 30 to 27 inches. It has an IBO speed of 340 feet per second, and it weighs 5 pounds. And it has an 80% let-off. It's definitely a larger bow and heavier bow than this X8, but after you shoot it for a while, you don't really notice the difference. I only noticed it when I picked them up, and I was like, man, this is a lot lighter than I remember. It's because I've been shooting this bow for quite a while. So now let's go over the assembly, the packaging, all the pieces you're going to get shipped to your house. And again, if you buy the bare bow kit, you're not going to get these add-on features, but these might be something you already have. So that's going to be an option that you're going to have to decide on. If you already have a sight or an arrow rest that you like, you might not need these. If you don't have anything, you can buy the kit. When it's shipped to you, it'll come in a foam box. I remember the X8 came in a plastic vacuum seal packaging. This came all in foam. It seems like they learned a lot when they shipped these to a bunch of people. This was the #1 selling bow years ago on Amazon, and it seemed like they learned how to ship stuff and not get it broken. So this seemed well packaged. Now if you do buy the kit, here's the things you're going to get with it. It'll come with a 3-pin sight, a quiver, a drop-away arrow rest, which can be set up with either a cable release or a string release. It comes with this front dampener. It doesn't come with any release, whereas the beginner kit came with all that kind of cheap release and things like that. Probably considering you're not going to want their cheap $10, $15 release. That's something you probably already have. So the next thing is setup and tuning. So again, I think they learned a lot from the X8. This is fully adjustable. You don't need a bow press. All it takes to adjust the draw weight is an Allen bolt on the front, and all it takes to adjust the draw length is 2 Allen bolts on the cams. And the same goes for the Dragon 10. It's an Allen bolt on the limb to adjust the draw weight, and on the cams there's 2 Allen bolts and the limb stop. So it's a little more advanced than the X8, but it's not that more complicated that you can't figure out if it's your first time doing it. If you look in the manual, you can adjust the draw length. I have a 29-inch draw length, so that's what I set the cams at. So on these cams, you look at the chart, I set it to a 3 on the Allen bolt, and the limb stop you also set to a 3. So thing to note, never remove the limb stops. Always leave them on there. Never take them off. Just loosen them and keep them on there and lock them in nice and tight. It comes with the D-loop on it, but I added a nose button. The peep sight was already installed, but I tied that in. As far as wrapping the grip, on my X8, I did wrap the grip to give it a more cushiony feel and a little warmer in the winter when you're shooting with your bare hands. This didn't need it. It had a nice rubber grip on it. I didn't at all feel like it needed to be wrapped. Cool thing is it comes with internal dampeners on the limbs and in the riser. That was great. And I'm gonna go over the noise and the vibration later, but this bow was great in both of those categories. Attaching the sight was very straightforward, just 2 Allen bolts attaching it to the frame. And adjusting it was great, whereas with the old X8, you had to get out your Allen wrenches every time you wanted to adjust it. This has dials for up and down, left and right, very easy and quick to adjust it. As far as the 3 sight pins, that's perfect for me, that's all I use. I set 20, 30, 40. I keep it very simple. And another thing, I don't shoot with a quiver, but I do attach this quick quiver attachment. You can attach it right here on the sight, and it'll clip in the quiver if you want it to. I'll clip it in when I'm going out in the woods, and then I'll unclip it and hang it on the tree behind me. This has a drop-away arrow rest, so I always shoot a whisker biscuit. I know it's not perfect, but it's very simple. I can put the arrow in, it can bounce around, it's quiet, 0 moving parts. I was a little, I wouldn't say nervous, but I wasn't sure whether I was going to use this arrow rest. So far, it's worked out great. It's a little more work, whereas the whisker biscuit is 0 work, 0 effort. It's always perfect. This you have to adjust it, but it's worked out great and it's shot really well. So when you get the arrow rest, it will be set up as a cable release, a string release. The drop away will work based on attaching to a cable. I wanted it set up for a limb release, which is what you could see this string going down to the limb here. It actually has a little metal loop you can attach the string to. Converting it from a cable release to a limb release was not the simplest thing in the world. You had to get out some needle nose pliers. You had to disassemble this inner working and convert the spring on the inside. It took a little while, and you had to get in there with really fine needle nose pliers and pull everything out. You kind of had to disassemble the inside of this release. It's not something you could just do in 5 seconds without thinking. But now that it's set up, I'll never have to mess with it again. And the difference is, with the limb release, it's always under tension. So right now this is under tension. When you draw it back, the rest will come up. The cable release is the opposite. It's down because it's not under tension. When you draw it back, it pulls it under tension, and then it releases back to slack again. So let's go over the pros and cons, and let's start with the pros. And number 1 is accuracy. I was amazed at how much more accurate this bow was than the X8. Right out the gate, when I got it sighted in and the arrow rest aligned, I was shooting such tighter groups with this Dragon 10. I was amazed. And the 2 big things with archery are accuracy and consistency. That's what you really want. You want to be accurate, but you want to be consistent. You don't want arrows all over the target. You want to be consistent and confident when you're out hunting that you're going to put the arrow where you want it to go. And this has been great.
So this is 20 yards.
Along with that is the pins are tighter because this is a faster bow. I shoot heavier arrows, 18% FOC, 455 grain arrows. So I normally have large pin gaps, and with this faster bow, those have tightened up, and that makes it easier. If I screw up on a yardage on a deer, I'm not going to be off by as much. The next thing is price, and what I really want to say is price to performance. Yeah, this bow is $450, but if you're comparing this to other Flagship bows, it's going to be less than half. Most Flagship bows are $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. And that price is probably one of the main reasons why you're looking at this bow. You might be looking at other Flagship bows and saying, I don't really want to spend $1,500. And then you look at this and say, is it worth it? Is it a cheaper bow? It's not cheap at all. It's well made. It shoots great. The limb dampening, really great. And as far as that vibration and sound, compared to my X8, how much less vibration and how much less noise out of this bow. It was quieter, which means the deer's not going to jump the string, and it was less vibration to shoot. It was a pleasure to shoot. There was no vibration. The draw cycle I'll go over as one of the cons, but the back wall with these limb stops was really good. You weren't questioning where that back wall was. When you hit those limb stops, it stopped. There was a thud there. There was no question on that arrow's going to creep forward. When you hit that back wall, it was nice and solid. And with the consistency and accuracy was the balance. It was really well balanced when I shoot. It was quick to the target. I wasn't searching all over for the target. I found that when I was taking aim, it locked in really well, and that's due to the balance of the bow. And with a flagship bow, you really want the best. You want the fastest bow, and that's with the speed. It has an IBO speed of 340 feet per second. And I'll put up a chart of what I actually shot based on my arrow weight. That extra speed actually did make a difference. I wasn't having to aim as high. My pin gap is a lot tighter. Again, the adjustability, the fact that you don't need a bro press to adjust the cams, the draw length, the draw weight. You can buy it on Amazon. When you buy it from Amazon, you have a 90-day warranty. If you hate it, if you don't like it, if it's not working the way you want, you can always return it. So those are all the pros that come with this bow. Now, let's talk about some of the cons. So now for the cons, and the first thing right off the bat for me is the draw cycle. I didn't appreciate how smooth the draw cycle was on this beginner X8. This thing is so smooth to draw back. There's no real big humps or valleys. The back wall isn't as solid, but this is smooth to draw back. This thing has a much more aggressive draw cycle. So when you draw back, there's a big hump and then that valley and the back wall. And if you let it creep forward any little bit, it goes. I almost think whatever you can draw on the X8, you probably got to subtract 5 pounds when you're drawing this back. This feels like a lot more weight to draw back, I think, because of that draw cycle. So that's something to consider when you're bow hunting and maybe you're wearing all these clothes and you're leaning over. It's not so smooth to draw back. It's not unbearable, but it's just something to factor in. Next is the drop away arrow rest. Again, I shoot a whisker biscuit. I think it's simpler out in the woods. Maybe not it's as accurate. There's more contact with the arrow, whereas the drop away rest, there's zero contact with the arrow. It did shoot great. I have no complaints. Shooting in the backyard is great, but it's noisier. The arrow kind of rattles around in there. Accuracy-wise, it's great, but being out in the woods and simplicity, I might end up going to a whisker biscuit. Another thing on the arrow rest, there's only one bolt on here. I thought they would have 2 bolts to really lock it in place. I haven't had an issue with it, but I thought maybe 2 bolts on here would be a little factor of safety. In case one comes loose, this arrow rest isn't gonna shift. It was a bit of a pain switching from a cable release to a limb release. If you're fine with a cable release, you just attach it on and it's no big deal. But if you wanna go with a limb release, you have to dissect this thing, take it apart, take all these little pieces off, put on the new spring they give you, put it all back together, and make sure it's still functioning well. Next, one of the cons is the heaviness of it. It's 5 pounds, but when you're holding this thing out there, you notice that extra 2 pounds. Another thing is if you buy the kit, you're gonna get this sight. And one thing I didn't like was right here. This sticks out, so when you set the bow down, you're setting it right on this bar here, right on this sight pin. And if it's not tight enough, when you set it down, this thing's gonna lift up and you're gonna be out of whack. So I don't know how they could make it so it's fully adjustable and not sitting on this. And make sure this is tightened down, make sure this is tightened down, because if you jostle it or set it down, it can come out of alignment and not shoot as accurate. Another thing is with the X8 fits everybody. You can give it to a kid, an adult. This one you kind of have to know yourself as a shooter, which you probably will. So you can't just go on there and buy the bow. You have to know, wait, what's my draw length? What's the draw weight I want to shoot? Maybe you're right at 59, 62 pounds and you're trying to decide which one to buy. With the X8, it doesn't matter. With this one, you have to know and you have to buy that specific bow. Another thing that was a little bit easier to screw up, again, it's not that hard, but it's a little easier to screw up the timing with these cams. So they're 2 different cams on the top and bottom, and they have the limb stops you have to adjust. It's not hard. You set it, for me, I set it to a 3. I set the limb stop to a 3. Both sides, it's fine. You can fine tune it to adjust that valley, but it's a little more complicated. But if you're buying this, the X8 is for a beginner. This is for more intermediate and advanced. You should be able to figure it out. Another con is they did have the limb dampeners and the riser dampeners. It would be cool if they gave you some string silencers, some of those little monkey tail silencers. They're like 10, 12 bucks you could put on the strings or not to silence the strings. That would have been a nice little feature they could have included. Overall, there's not that many cons, so let's go over to the conclusion, what I really think about this bow, would I buy it, and my recommendations to you. So for a final conclusion, if you are buying your very first bow on Amazon, I would suggest this, the X8. This fits everybody. It's 200 bucks. It's adjustable, it's light, everybody can shoot it. It's surprisingly good. If you're ready to upgrade, if you're more of an intermediate to advanced, then this would be a perfect bow for you. And if you're somebody like me, I'm never gonna spend over $1,000 for a bow. I'm not that hardcore of a deer hunter. Yeah, I wanna be accurate. Yeah, I like shooting in the backyard, but I can't justify spending over $1,000. That's why this would be perfect for somebody like me. So all in all, you might be spending close to $700 for everything, but maybe you already have a sight that you like, maybe you already have an arrow rest that you like, maybe you're like me, you want to put in the $20 whisker biscuit. So if you're looking to upgrade your bow, if you're ready to leave that entry-level section and move to more intermediate or advanced, but you're like, I'm not spending $1,500, this would be a perfect choice. You can buy it from Amazon, you can test it out. If you don't like it, you can return it. It's surprising how much of a difference a bow like this has made. So I'm really happy every time I get to go out and shoot it. So I hope this helps. Thanks.